Hey everybody, Scott Detweiler here with Scott Detweiler Photography, and today we're going to work through how to create backups and to know all of your data is secure. I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking how I organize my files and keep things from getting destroyed, and so I thought I would work through those today. Many of these can be done with what you already have or with a minor investment, I should say. There's a few things that I think you should spend money on, and we're not talking a lot of money here. To really kind of set yourself up for success and not losing any files. So let's first of all talk about layout on a drive. So first of all, I'm going to take, this is what I call my SATA huge drive. It is a 6 terabyte internal hard drive stuck inside of my computer. So in here, you see there's not a lot going on. I have my Camtasia videos, crashplan, or we'll talk about that in a minute. And there's a photos folder. So inside of photos, I have catalogs, and I break everything down by catalog. In my mind, I want to make sure that my family photographs, my model photography, my client photography, I used to do some stock photography, all that stuff is in here and all organized in a way that they don't mingle with each other. So inside of the model catalog, I have the actual catalogs. These are created by Lightroom. So I do my data asset management, or my DAM, with Lightroom. So in the 2015 folder, for example, we have the Lightroom catalog file and then the train wreck of directories created by Lightroom itself. This is the reason why the catalogs are in their own folders, is I don't want them to play with others because they don't play well. Capture One, which I also use, is not included here either because I deleted those because they are even worse as far as the amount of crap they create, and I don't want to confuse the audience with that at this time. I'll be making some Capture One videos at some point in the future as well, because it is way better at Lightroom in some things and terrible at other things. So trying to find the balance. This one is more about files and organizing yourself than it is about the actual tool. So needless to say, I then have a raw directory, and this is where everything goes. So by year, and this is the way Lightroom does its import, and I let Lightroom handle it. I let it create the year folder. I let it create the year, month, day folder when it pulls things in, and this is what you end up with. Now, I actually rename the folder after it's brought in, and I add a hyphen, and then I add the name of what it is so I can kind of keep track and not have to kind of go through the guessing game of what date things were. This is fine. You do it inside of Lightroom. You don't have to do it inside of here. So it's a very easy, brainless kind of thing to handle. So this is really how it's organized. Inside of each one of these is going to be maybe a further breakdown. I have a video on why I do this, but you don't have to. I'll link to that video somewhere here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Again, a completely unnecessary step. If you don't have very large shoots with a lot of different themes, then it's very possible for you to just throw everything to one directory and call it good. But I do it this way. So so just once again, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at photos, and then I have by catalog. If you only do one type of photography, and none of us do, you will have a family catalog and you'll have a work catalog. At least that's the way I would do it. Inside of there, again, you have your directories where you create your Lightroom catalogs, the actual Lightroom catalog, and all the train wreck that it makes, and then a raw folder, which is where everything goes by year. This never changes, by the way. Now you see there's a raw archive here, and basically these are raw files that I have not touched in a very long time. So I've taken them kind of out of the raw folder, and I'll get to why that is in a second, but it has to do with the synchronization method I use to keep things from backing up. I took them out, and if you look in here, it's the exact same structure as the raw folder. It's just older years. So I just drag them into here when I'm done playing with them. So they're not going away. They're not being deleted. They're still being backed up, but they're being backed up not as aggressively by the process that I'm about to explain. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to the next part. So this is what I call my working drive, because it is a fast internal drive. It's just a screamer. It goes very quick and does its thing. I do have faster drives like this PCIe drive. This is about 10 times faster than a solid state drive. If you don't know about M.2 drives, that is what this is. You can Google it if you'd like more about it. It's kind of not real common yet, but I'm sure that it will be sooner than later. So this I use as my Photoshop cache and Lightroom cache for things. I don't really use this as a working drive because it's not very large. But anyway, so here's this structure on the internal drive, and this is what I will go and use my editing software. I'll create my Photoshop documents, and everything goes right back into the raw folder next to the original raw document. So they're all in one place, easy to get to. But what if this drive fails? And it will fail. It is a 100% guaranteed certainty that all hard drives will fail. This drive is going to fail. So what's going to happen when that day comes and I wake up in the morning and I go to log in and all your files are missing? Well, so what I have is I have another drive, and this one is kind of a specialty piece of equipment. You do not need this. You can do this with a regular hard drive, but this is what we call a Drobo. And I didn't get a paid placement for this or anything, and they didn't pay me to talk about it. It's just completely a product I love. As you can see here, this is the one I have. It has 5 drives in it. And the trick about this one is what they call a striped RAID array, meaning that 2 of these drives, and it doesn't matter what 2 of these drives can fail, and this machine will still have all of your files and still work at full speed as if nothing happened. And then if it happens, you'll see this little light will turn red. We get another drive, we open it up. We don't even turn the device off. You pop it out like a cassette, you slap in the new drive and it rebuilds it and you're ready to go. Nothing had to be turned off, nothing had to be taken offline, and you had no slowdown in your production. Beautiful piece of equipment, and I'll link to one of those down below. You can also put any drive of any size from any manufacturer into this thing, so you don't require that they all be the same size or anything like that. Just whatever you happen to have laying around. This device appears like, in a way I have it configured anyway, one giant 16 terabyte hard drive. It always looks like one gigantic hard drive, even if it doesn't have 16 terabytes worth of space in it, which is pretty weird. So let's say you put 4 or 5 1 terabyte drives into it, it'll show us a 16 terabyte drive. And as you start putting files in it, it starts to get full because there is only really 3.5 terabytes of workable space. That other terabyte and a half is really made for making sure that one of the drives fails, it's able to restore or keep working mathematically on your files, even if they don't fully exist at that time. That's magic. We aren't going to go into that right now. But anyway, as you start to fill that, it'll say, hey, you should replace this 1 terabyte drive with a bigger drive, and we can keep moving forward. Otherwise, you're kind of running out of this protection space that we've built for you, and it's becoming a concern. So you find another drive, and you slap it in there, and lo and behold, the warning goes away, and you just keep going. So over time, I've gone from 1 terabyte drives into, I think I have a couple 4s, a 2, and maybe I think there's a 5 in there now. And you just keep adding them and making them bigger as you fill that space. Now I've reached that full space, so one of them is as big as it can get, and I actually created another one called Overflow. So Overflow is actually part of the Drobo. It's just another hard drive letter for another partition. I'm not going to go into that. I probably lost a couple of you right there, but needless to say, it's just an external hard drive. But it's so cool in the fact that you can lose a drive or two and you're not going to lose your information. So I love this, but there's no reason that you couldn't just do one of these. So this is just a Seagate 4 terabyte portable external hard drive, $129, and you're good to go. So something like this is also fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if this drive fails, and it will fail, you're going to lose this drive. But again, it is your backup drive. It is not your primary internal drive. So, okay, we have 2 backups now. And notice that the structure of this one is exactly the same. I go into model photography, and here's my raw, and then here's all my catalogs. Now I do have my older catalogs on here, but I don't need them in my working drive because, again, these files are not being used. So now my problem is, if I work on here, how do they get to the Drobo? Do I have to remember to copy that? Is there work involved? Because I want to be lazy about how I do things. I don't want to have to think or remember or be required to do anything to make sure that I'm covered. I'm not going to have that happen. So I use this application called goodsync. This is like a $20 application. It's cheap, and it works on any of these application or operating systems. And what it does is it just makes sure that both sides are always synchronized. So this is my goodsync application. So it operates in what we call a left to right. So you notice here we have a left and a right. Well, it's very, very simple. And basically say that in the middle of the night, I want to run an unattended job where it takes things from the left side and copies them to the right side. There is no right to left. So if I copy or change a file on the Drobo, it is not going to make it back to the working drive. It is a one direction. Now that's an option that I set inside of goodsync. It is not something you have to do. You can do this either direction you would like. I just have it set for left to right and only left to right. and it just does its business. So now I have 2 copies of the same file, and one of them is on this incredible RAID array, this Drobo device over here. So I'm good to go. Let me bring up my last little invention here, and that's crashplan. Now, crashplan is a service that you pay for. It's $100 and something a year, not very expensive, but it's got some incredible capabilities. And again, this is not a paid placement. They didn't pay me to do this. This is just me talking about a tool that I loved. And I did use Mozy before crashplan, but Mozy they changed their pricing, and it looked like I was going to pay out $1,000 a year. And of course, I had a little bit of a conniption when that happened, so I moved to crashplan. So what this does is it has a cloud-based storage, and you point it to what you want to back up. So in crashplan, I tell it to back up pretty much everything on my J drive, which is the Drobo over here. So at night, after this goodsync has done its business, the Drobo goes, does its comparisons, and backs everything up to the cloud. Now note, this can take a while. When I first started this, it was almost a year and a half, which was outrageous. They now offer what they call a seeding capability, where you can send them a hard drive containing the files you have as of today, and then you'll start backing up from that point forward. When I first started with crashplan, they didn't offer that, so it wasn't an option. Now that makes it a no-brainer to get up and going instantaneously. But this is a cloud-based solution, which means you have to be connected to the internet, and it works at night when you're not around, which is fine. But what if I need to have, or prefer to have, a backup of this locally as well? crashplan, if you don't want to pay for it, by the way, these capabilities are available, which blows my mind. What a great piece of software that this is free. These three things here are free. We can add a friend, and meaning that we could take a hard drive to a friend's house, plug it in, and then it will back up my data to that friend encrypted and compressed onto a local hard drive connected to their machine. So if my house burns down, I still have a copy of it over at their house. And they can't look at it either. I mean, it's encrypted, so if you care, that's there. But you have, and you can do that to as many friends as you would like. So you can spread your data all over the place. You can add another computer that would be in your same house. So if you want to back up files on that computer to the crashplan central or to any of these things, you can do that. And then to a folder. Now, this is another one of those situations where you can buy one of those 4 terabyte Seagate drives, for example, put it on your local machine, and have crashplan go ahead and create a backup archive on that as well. So you would have a local copy of the crashplan encrypted and compressed stuff on a hard drive, as well as your 2 working copies here, as well as crashplan central. So we now have 4 possible working copies, or as many other hard drives as we would like to add here, by the way. Now, the other thing about crashplan that's pretty cool is it creates a backup of your working file every 15 minutes. And then after a week or so, it will go down to every hour. And then after a month or so, it goes to like every day. And you can change those settings in here to say how often you want different versions of those files saved. So you can have, after a year, you could still have backups that back up that file every week if you'd like. And the way the backup system works or compresses the files, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It isn't each file. It's only the differences between those files, it seems to be how it's working. So we can jam a whole lot of data onto a 4 terabyte drive compared to what it would be if it were fully expanded. So anyway, so that's my song and dance for what I'm using here. So the most expensive piece of equipment here is obviously the Drobo, and you don't need that. You can use any sort of external hard drive. I would just say make sure it's a drive that is different from the drive that you're working on. So again, a backup is not a copy on the same hard drive. It is always a different piece of hardware. So if one drive fails, because it will, you'll have another copy on another drive somewhere else. And then getting into crashplan central or off-site, I think, is a critical part of making sure that you have your data protected. And I do like the friend option, although I have truthfully never used it, although I have used the folder option quite often. I'll back up to a folder with crashplan, disconnect that drive, and then put it in the fire safe downstairs. So when I come back up, if I connect that drive, I can pull files from it if I need to. If I don't want to have to pull, say it's a large directory and I have to pull it down from crashplan, it might take a couple days. I can do that with a local folder, and it doesn't cost me anything other than having a hard drive laying around. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll go ahead and get links to those things in the description for the video. If you do me a huge favor and click the like button, about 1 out of every viewer, out of every 100 viewers clicks the like button, and it really helps the video be found. And I think this is something a lot of photographers would like to know. So if you would do me a favor and click that like button, that would be great. If you'd like to see more photography-oriented videos or have a request on something you'd like me to cover, please feel free to leave a comment below, and I'd love it if you would subscribe. So until next time, take care and make sure those files are backed up.